Call this meeting to order, 6:02 p.m., Tuesday, May 19th, 2020. City of Somerton work session. Gonna forego all formalities and go straight to roll call.
Mayor Gerardo Anaya.
Present.
Vice Mayor Martha Garcia.
Present.
Councilmember Carlos Gonzalez. Councilmember Gonzalez has asked to be excused tonight. Councilmember Miguel Villalpando.
He has to be excused.
He's asked to be excused. Councilmember Luis Galindo. Councilmember Jesus Roldan.
Present.
Councilmember Juan Castillo.
Present.
Mayor, you have a quorum.
We have one item, discussion of possible action on the 2021 City of Somerton budget with a focus on
Good evening, Mayor, council members. In the previous meeting where we discussed the general fund, I know that we had discussed potential balancing items. As of right now, or as of the information provided to you previously, my recommendation is still to decrease the amount of sales tax revenue by 10%, given our current situation. That would be about $400,000. And right now, we're at a $750,000 deficit, of which $510,000 is contingency. So a true deficit is of $640,800. Okay. In reviewing the request you'd asked for last meeting to bring the police officer salary to $21.30, that would be a $64,000 cost. For the rest of the police department, which would be limited to the dispatch, because in the other supervisory positions, those have been filled over the last 6 to 8 months, and so those would really not, well, essentially they could qualify for the 150, but taking that into account, the majority of the positions would be in dispatch, which would be $1.50, which would come out to $33,000. Bringing that to $97,000 additional dollars out of the general fund. Okay. This is in coordination with the PDF that I provided to you all last meeting. So where can we cut? I sent the balancing the budget in difficult times. Within that PDF, it provides guidance as to where the majority of the cuts may come from, depending on our organization. Obviously, position control is one of the major ones. One of the major recommendations is not filling non-critical positions. We're fortunate that we don't have a lot of non-critical positions within the city of Somerton. So we don't have a lot of positions that really we can't go without. So, but the amount of overtime in the general fund comes out to about $300,000. If we were to freeze travel for next year, that comes out to $66,000. Capital outlay, if we take into account all the projects that are not currently funded, that's $64,000. There's $30,000 in facade improvements and $90,000 in what we had anticipated spending in bonding. So here, these are just a couple of suggestions for you. I just took these figures out of the general fund, so you can potentially contemplate that. With that, I will bring up the spreadsheet that we reviewed last time. So essentially, the $400,000 would be 10%. Would be about 10% of the city sales tax or state shared revenues. This is where I get the $750,000. And so with that, I'd like to start our conversation for how you'd like us to proceed. Are any of these suggestions that I've presented to you acceptable? Would you like us to potentially budget those items within contingency, and after 6 months go back and review our revenues to see where we are and allow for those additional expenditures? Really, this is where I'd like to get your input or insight as to where we need to move, where we would like to go.
So the numbers you gave, were those, can you go back to?
Yes, these. Or these.
So that would be cutting and making up the deficit with those cuts?
With these cuts.
Yeah.
Yes. Some, it just depends on, for example, the travel freeze. We can have a travel freeze for the first 6 months of the year. Obviously, we can't do that with those who are the patrol positions for the cadets that are going out and receiving that training, but that's how much we have budgeted in travel within our general fund budget. And obviously the overtime would impact police and fire most, so that's also something to take into account.
Fire has it integrated
And their pay.
schedule, yeah,
Yes.
and their pay. PDs, we don't have enough officers not to do their overtime.
Right. So,
My thoughts exactly, Vice Mayor. We're looking at 300,000. I mean, fire and police. I mean, I don't see that as as kind of like an option just because of the safety of our residents. I mean, to me that's more of a priority. That would be my take on that. But maybe we can get more creative on it in other ways. Again, I mean, I know. I want to throw this out there. The dependent coverage is I don't see it here. I think that's an area where that we could see some savings also. But as far as if it's affecting fire and police, I mean, it's a hard sell for me on that one.
right. And it would be something where we'd have to take a look at those on a quarterly basis, see where we are, and identify whether we're able to do it. I think right now the most difficult part is that police isn't fully staffed. So I don't know at what point in time that will happen or when our chief projects that to happen.
I would say a hiring freeze for everything except public safety. Of course, the overtime, I want to see how much public safety is getting in overtime. How can we, because every year we've been increasing that overtime, so maybe we'll start looking at historical levels. We heard that a lot of that calls have been going down, so we can start looking more and more at that.
Okay, so I'm pulling up fire and police. And,
And of course, the reclassification, we don't.
well, yeah, the
we'll help
reclassification.
them.
Yeah. Good point.
about when police will be fully staffed. And right now, there's 10 officers working patrol, which is, of course, is not much, but the goal is to get that up to 15 by January of 2021. So it gradually increases. We'll have 12 by mid-September of 2020, and then late October up to 14, and then 15 by January of 2021. So by then, overtime should be significantly reduced.
And I apologize, Mayor, for interrupting earlier, but the two reclassifications or the two positions, those would not yield an additional expense. They would, it would be an additional expense of about $5,000 to do away with the captain's position and have the other positions in the budget.
Yeah, I would much rather give those raises to the police officer for retention purposes than eliminate that position and throughout the captain and put a freeze at least to mid-year and see where we're at.
Okay, so you'd be recommending canceling that captain's position and not having those other two
In
positions?
general, throughout the city.
What do you mean? I'm sorry.
On the hiring freeze.
Right. Right, just so the hiring freeze
Until mid-year.
until mid-year, okay? And those two positions,
Yes. Well, all the positions that are being recommended to be reclassified.
okay.
I just want, just for my own clarification, in terms of our current job openings, we have 7. Of course, 2 of those are firefighter and police officer, which we continue.
Yeah, public safety would.
Wastewater treatment collection system operator, I'm not sure if we know if that's a,
That doesn't cover the general fund.
thank you. Street maintenance worker, that one is on hold. Obviously, city manager will be talking about it later today. And I think that's clear. Thank you.
Okay. So a hiring freeze through mid-year, no reclassifications, and essentially the positions as they are.
Using a captain position for the PD?
Yeah,
Right,
pretty,
right.
yes.
For the PD, so to accommodate having police officers at 2130 and dispatchers at 150. Got it. Okay.
Does that include the 150 for officers too?
Well-
Remember they mentioned that last?
So the 150, the majority of the officers would be getting a much higher,
Than the entry level?
yeah, so most of the officers would be getting an increase of more than $1.50. So to bring them at the 2130 rate, it's gonna be way over the $1.50. So by bringing them up to the 2130, it'll, for at least the majority of the police officers, it would be about $2 and some cents.
Yes, across the board.
Yes, for all patrol. And for dispatch, the $1.50. So then you would be eliminating that captain's position without bringing on board any new employees.
New employees being,
Those two, the two records supervisor and records technician.
and that would be, we'll handle that at mid-year, all the positions here. If it needed is 10% reduction revenues. So that could be, and the same thing for the capital outlay. Take a look at that mid-year.
Okay. What about the travel?
Is that for both mayor and council and?
Yeah, it's for everyone.
And staff?
Yeah, it's everyone.
I would say for council, just the League of Cities.
Will the League of Cities be holding an annual conference?
It's in September.
So if they are holding the annual conference, then you will be traveling to that?
Yes.
And that's in Arizona, right? That's in the States.
Okay. I'm not sure what portion of the budget is associated with that. I just essentially grouped all travel together. So the capital outlay will be revisiting the facade improvements, the loans to,
This is for the buildings and motion.
yes, sir.
Mayor and council, regarding facade, we've only had one applicant to the amount of $10,000 to date.
We've tried every year. We haven't had any success.
So would you recommend that we put that into contingency or eliminate that line item?
We had conversations with Hector.
Sir, I have not. I know he likes the program, but again, the impact has been pretty low.
I have a question. Is there any, I read that balance in the budget at that time. Did you go over that with the directors? Did they have an opportunity to kind of, before they came up with their budget?
No, I did not. I think Ian and I went over it, but I didn't go over it with each of the directors. So, no, it was something that I presented to Ian and you all after the fact. So, no, sir. And then we have the bonding costs.
I mean, I read it and it has some very good information for directors when they're establishing it, that, I mean, on how they could save and how they could tier it, you know. And I was just curious, I wanted to see how many of our directors really took into, the control, the personal cost, the purchasing practices, those things, see if they really, dived into it. Because reading it, I thought it was very crucial for them. But I think maybe that's something that maybe for next year, plan it in form, just for them to have that mindset when they're going into the process.
Okay.
I know this year, we compared the last years, fiscal years, that we were asked to find deductions. We took the average.
So, yes, it looks like we are over in our expenditures from one year to the next.
So maybe we could look at that and we have justification of why.
Actually, no, I'm sorry. We're actually lower in personnel. We're lower in operations as well. We're not lower, we're a little higher.
I
But
really like that that little quote that, in that article that said that the budget should be formulated in a way that is data-driven and results-oriented.
I
So,
agree.
you know, it's one of those things that we're, I mean, we have to kind of cut back. It's like, I'm not fine with it, but it's, are we really, you know, that our directors really, you know, own that data and took that data into consideration and see where we could save.
So, yes, and in operations, we are lower by 880,000 compared to prior year. Or in expenditures, not in budgeted expenditures, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the estimates, how much we're going to save.
When we do an exercise, each department needs to cut 10%.
Well, those are a couple of the items, so if we were to cut 10%,
Of general fund, I cut 10%.
so
That applies to everything.
all the departments, so essentially go through that exercise with each department, identifying
General fund.
that are in general fund, identifying where we can trim off essentially 10% of the overall budget for each of those departments. Okay,
So what I asked in the court, there was a recommendation that was state mandated.
Mhm.
Is anything that can be done as far as personnel and with that, you know, they're usually the court is, you know, out of sight, out of mind, but maybe we can start looking at, efficiencies there and see what, you know, anything that can be some personnel shift that they need to cover for that, security officer. Just, questions, just start looking at it more closely and start looking at everything. And the overtime needs to, we can hire people, hopefully we fix up the PP side and also, fire, we've always had issues, but I'm hoping that we can find formula, start looking more closely.
So where would that kind of tentatively put us if, you know, like Mayor suggested, you know, every department has 10%, where would that leave us with the other slide that showed us?
with the other slide that I showed you, so if we went through and each department cut 10% of the budget in operations, I suppose, it's let me see, so we would do that times 0.1. So it'd be 250,000 in operations. These are the department, our operational costs. And really in the general fund, there's only 3 new positions. I think it's the graphic design position from a part-time to a full-time. It's the court position, and it's the part-time position for finance that's distributed among the rest of the funds. So,
Now, would those positions that you mentioned be considered critical or non-critical?
the court one is critical because it's mandated. The graphic designer, I don't know how critical that is. I don't know if it's a critical one. The part-time for the finance department, I think it's critical because it will provide us the support that we need for answering phones, processing payments, and it allow us to work more efficiently and address customer service concerns from our residents. And it's not just general funds. It's not just funded from the general fund. It's funded from HERF, water, and wastewater. I think the amount that's coming out of general fund is a third. So it's not fully general fund funded.
I remember about 2009 and 2010, there was a lot of, also with the budget, I know the city administrator at that time sat down with each individual director and, the same thing, cut. It was 10%, 12%, whatever it was, but it was across the board, only in general fund position. But I know the word, I understand that, as budget sometimes is a wish list, things that they can get and they cannot, but at the
the same time, tough, decisions, tough situations, especially right now, it's, what's coming, and so I think we have to, at the end, the whole city should follow, just to make up for the decision that it was not taken at the beginning of the budget. Then it was choice, because now, the decisions, some of the departments, I guess, are not, but at the end, the whole city suffered, instead of cutting them at the beginning, this will be cut throughout. So I think it will be good, if you sit down, and let them know that, it's not that we just want to cut it, but time's coming, and they need to make a decision of what things they can help them. They're in charge of the budget, and they need to foresee, what is also like really, needed or not. So I know at the end we have to make a decision, but I think if we give the opportunity to them so they can come up with their budget and things that they can cut, I think will help us a little bit understand that also they put their 5 cents. So like I said, tough decisions sometimes, but I think like this, give them the opportunity so they can choose.
Yeah, they each probably have different needs, some may be travel, also it may be special events, or whatever, but there needs to be a look at that. At least I don't feel comfortable just that blanket approach of just getting, looking at the overall budget, just saying, it just,
Well, you know what I was gonna say, it's just, I kind of do, I agree with both of you, because I do feel like we're here trying to make a decision, and we're gonna make a decision that's gonna impact each department, and I feel that, that should be taken at, we're here to kind of govern, and I feel that this is kind of more like a management level, decision that should be kind of, be made, because if we end up, cutting in the wrong place, you guys, the departments know where the priorities are, where to cut, what's the need, what's the want, and I think, so I kind of I agree with what Mayor said, if get with the department said this is the amount, you in finance, you know exactly the amount that you want to get to, and figure out a formula that those department heads need to make that decision. And these are going to be tough decisions, but this is why we have them in those positions, to be able to make those decisions. And then, that would be my recommendation, Mayor. I kind of feel that we kind of make it. They're the ones that know their department.
Yeah, it should come from staff, looking at every personnel. We have the right people in the right places. We don't see the day-to-day operation. We can just, you ask me, and I was disappointed last year that we didn't have any parts of rec capital projects. This year I wanted, so with those parameters, that's what I would like to see. And we've talked about it. Maybe we can wait till mid-year and see, but at least the personnel side, the operations side, we can go back to the drawing board and make some cuts as much as just looking at it.
Mayor, may I? The Joe Munoz part, the Joe Munoz basketball court improvements is included in the budget, so that will go forward, and the majority of that is being funded by donations. So it's going to be a significant project that'll make an impact, and $8,000, $9,000 of that is coming out of the general fund, and that essentially is not included in the 64,500. So we will be executing that project hopefully next year. So, and I guess it's one of those things that, is it going to be across the board? Are we all going to go in and cut 10%? 10%? Is there, like for example, in the outside agencies, is the Corn Festival, the Tamal Festival, are those going to go forward in this current environment? And is that something that you want to maybe put in contingency in those other events? Because, you know, that's, what, $30,000, that's within the mayor and council's budget, that realistically, we don't know whether those are gonna happen because of the whole COVID pandemic. Hopefully they will, but,
I would agree that it should be contingency if it happens.
then, yeah, we can reevaluate a quarter through the year and make that accommodation, you know.
I'm just saying with their own city special events, 4th of July coming up, that's one of the bigger events, the biggest in the
Yes.
city, that's about, what, $20,000-$30,000 spent. And that goes from, music and all that, so that's a big item too, that if it's not
Right.
gonna go through, then that's money there that
We can reduce that amount. That's a great observation, you're right. With regards to for example, the swimming pool, I know that we didn't budget for this current year, so from July through August, we didn't budget for any lifeguards. So we foresaw that that would potentially not happen, so we've made that adjustment there. But we didn't foresee, for example, the 4th of July. That's gonna be a savings, and to me, we can go back and review, okay, what other events do we have between July and December that would potentially not go forward, that we could identify and maybe move those into contingency so that we could potentially reevaluate. That's great, yes.
I would say for the Corn Fest and the Tamal Festival, those are way down. I think more than likely they will happen.
Senate will monitor.
Yeah.
For the Arizona one.
Because if you put 50,000 people in one area, I mean,
Yeah, if it helps the budget and
yeah.
the contingency to identify those that it's a if, put in contingency.
Okay. And so we can go through and do that across the board with all the departments and identify those areas where we may see a savings between the months of July through December. And maybe the way we can approach it is not necessarily not including them in the budget, but just include them in contingency. So each department has a specific amount that, rather than having it in their operating budget, it'll be in the contingency budget, and we can identify that contingency so that once we review our revenues and see, okay, we're in a better position, where are we going to start identifying those items. And I mentioned to Ian when we were working on this budget that fortunately and unfortunately, the 2019 budget was one that we cut $650,000 out of the 2020 budget compared to the 2019 budget. So we went through, in order to accommodate the COLAs for employees, we went through and we took everything we could that was not essential, necessary for our employees to get that COLA, which puts us in a very difficult situation when looking at the 2020 budget, because we've already cut a lot of what may have been wishes, may have been in the wish list for the budget, right, Ian, in the 2020 budget. So when we're comparing 2020 to 2021, it's a bit unfair. I mean, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I can add a comment on that, Mayor and Council. Going into this whole budget preparation, we did meet with each department heads, or not with each department head individually. She had additional meetings than I had. But the mindset and the tone from the outset was, this is going to be a conservative budget. This is going to be close to the bone as we can. And that message, I think it was loud and clear. And building off the last budget, which was also pretty close to the bone, council's direction is clear, and we will take it back, and we will look to cut 10% out of each general fund department. It's not going to be easy, but I just want council to rest assured that this was not going in, as some kind of wish list. I mean, sure, there were some pet projects, for lack of a better word, that some directors had, but those have either already been cut or are going to be the next thing to be cut. But to back up Zarina's statement, it was tight going in. The message was clear to directors what we were looking for, and it's going to be some hard choices.
Yeah, and even, looking at overtime, who's getting the overtime? Is it a high paid employees or is it, just start looking at that, and like you said, overtime, we've been increasing it every year, so maybe take a look at that and see what the trend is.
And I'm sorry, to build off of that, for example, the biggest areas in overtime are public safety. So hopefully when we get the police department fully staffed, then the overtime will decrease. They'll be actually coming out of the regular operations and decreasing on that overtime. But with regards to fire, I mean, the calls are down, right? So perhaps there's some savings there. So we can go back and take a look at that. I just do want to reiterate that we did go in and make it very tight already. So I think the other thing that I hadn't thought about was the $20,000 in tuition reimbursement that we have in there. That would put the list at $570. But in essence, so for example, the bonding, that's definitely something that's going to happen next year. So it should be, or this year. I guess that's something that we still have to discuss. But in terms of is everything up for cuts or only certain things?
Sorry, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You said next year, that means within the fiscal year?
Within the fiscal year, sorry. Yes. Okay. All right, I think I have very, very specific direction.
And, I mean, I know, you're in a tough situation, talking to the director, but let them know that, I mean, we can make a decision and cut, but I think giving the opportunity to them so they can, because for us, we can say cut this, and that's it, I mean, but at the end, we want them so they can come up with ideas or items that are not too essential, I guess, that they can.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
And maybe, on Thursday, Vice Mayor, as we would get together, take 10%.
Sure. If you'd like, I can facilitate that.
And also one IT position.
Oh, that's what we're trying not to do, huh? No furloughs.
And Mr. Mayor, just, you made a comment Thursday night, and this may not be the right time to discuss it, but I know that a couple of council members do have a conflict on Thursday night. We have a planned work session at 6 p.m. Staff is available next week, Wednesday or Thursday, if that works better. So just putting that out.
My son will be graduating this Thursday, so even though it's virtually, but still. But next week, Wednesday or Thursday.
So, just kind of to sum everything up. So as of now, you want us to go back, look through, work with the department heads, work through the budget, see how far we can cut, essentially about 10% of the budget. Are we going to do hiring freezes as of now, or will you be directing?
Let's let the directors look at it, and then we'll start moving with it.
very much. Unless you have,
I would say Thursday, because Labor Day is Monday.
Thursday of next week.
Yes.
Okay, I'll have Deputy City Clerk pull the rest of the council tomorrow morning, but we'll,
The 28th?
I'm good. Great. Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't realize you were still in the middle of that conversation. I apologize. I think we're good. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Jim.